What's going on, guys? My name is Franchovi, and this is the Playdate. 6 months ago, I met a bunch of strangers on the internet, and we formed a team called SPILASKOPA. We created a game in a 48-hour game jam called Discontrolled, in which you solve puzzles by controlling a little robot that has basically a short-term memory problem. When you pick up a button, you forget the last button that you had, and you gotta figure your way out through the level that way. Now, this game was a huge success during the game jam. People loved it, we loved it, it won the game jam. From there, we asked ourselves a question, what should we do from here? We decided that we wanted to bring this game all the way to its full potential, all the way to the Playdate catalog, which is basically the app store for the Playdate. The Playdate has a special thing called the crank, which is kind of an analog stick that you have, and honestly, it's the coolest thing about that game console. We decided to use the crank to basically forget actions manually, and you'd have to forget them manually to solve certain puzzles. The theme of the game jam was actually, you forgot something. Now, we decided to turn this into basically a memory game that not only your robot had a short-term memory, but probably we exposed your short-term memory as well, given that you had to memorize the buttons that you needed for that level. It turned out great in the jam, but we saw that a lot of people were frustrated at this fact that you didn't see any of the buttons that you had. That turned out to be maybe one of the biggest difficulties that people had. So immediately we started to take away that feature. We said, we're going to show you your actions all the time. And we started to think about other ways we could make the game more challenging and interesting. One of the second things that came up was that you got stuck quite often if you didn't have the right moves and you went, for example, too far and you meant to take a ladder, but you went past that ladder, then you had no way to get back. And we were thinking during the jam, how could we fix this problem? We didn't come up with a solution, but in the long run, we actually came up with the concept of the warp. So basically, this robot is able to go back in time using the crank, which is way cooler. In the jam, we also ran into plenty of issues with the very simple feature of the ladders. There were moments where you're supposed to walk on top of ladders. There's other moments where you're supposed to be going up and down. That didn't really work out. And so as the executive director decided to scrap the ladders altogether, and I was like, you know what's better than ladders? Elevators. Yeah. So another thing we noticed about the game jam version of the game, even if it looked good for what we were doing in 48 hours, was that actually the contrast was pretty bad. So one of the other objectives that we had was to give the game a makeover. We had Vachi's help making that little sprite for the game jam, which was awesome. Well, unfortunately, she couldn't really help us with the full version of the game. We went ahead and looked out for an artist, and that's where I met Dan, who's been creating our assets since. And I have to say, the game looks amazing now. It's way cooler. I mean, I'm still taking care of some things, but by the time this game is released, I'd imagine that Dan would have touched everything and that the game will look amazing in its entirety. You can tell now that the contrast ratios are a lot better and we're not really dealing with the same kind of, let's say, visual difficulties. You don't have to squint your eyes anymore as you're playing the game.
Now, I just wanted to share a little bit about my teammates. Here we have Scott, who's basically in charge of the music. He's been a professional in music since a long time. He's also working on the levels, doing some level design, which is great. We've also got Marvin, who's our video editor, obviously here at Franchovi, doing all the videos, and this is where I met him, basically. So thanks for being part of this journey, Marvin. And we've also got Ba, who's been helping us out since the beginning. He's just getting into game development, but he's been a huge help so far, bringing tons of cool ideas and helpfulness to the table, like putting together some of our game assets, some of the art assets for the marketing and everything like that, and obviously lots of cool story writing and everything. So now we did used to have Calvin on board, who was developing for us during the game jam and afterwards as well. Unfortunately, he's had to step out of the project because of lack of time. I am just playing the final version here on Buggy before we release the playtester version. Now, if you want to get in on it, there's going to be a Google form that you guys can fill out and basically add your email to the list, and we'll send you, once it's ready, We're gonna let this be a slow rollout where we want a lot of feedback, so be prepared to wait a little bit if you're gonna sign up. But we are super excited to get this first version out. So guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.